T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Wakey, wakey. You Get the Horn Show. Tad and Jeff here. What's happening, brother? How you doing, man?
Hey, doing good, man. Hey, real quick, do you see the strap on the Steeler helmet this week?
I do see that.
My 16-year-old noticed it wasn't on there. I was like, "You watched the show?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Huh." So he went and found
He wanted
it.
you to be more like the Ravens.
That's it. He's like,
my autographed Lamar Jackson helmet back there, which is authentic autograph, but not authentic skull to fit in that helmet, I don't think. But but that's right. That's the real deal. And he saw yours. He's like, that's yours looks real bad.
Yeah. I was just more impressed that he actually recognized you had yours and I didn't have mine.
That's right.
So yeah, he found
Shout out
it.
to him.
Put it
Shout
on.
out to
So,
him.
Yeah. Shout out.
Got the eagle eye there. Very well done, buddy. Appreciate you keeping a close eye on the Ravens. Smart move, smart man.
Yeah, I don't think that's what it was, but anyways.
All right, man. Well, listen, we got a lot to get through. We are going to get it in here to the best of our ability. So we're going to start with a little look back on Week 10, and we'll talk about maybe 3 things that each of us take away from Week 10 before we move ahead to Week 11 and some picks and prognostications there. Got some other interesting stats, and then we'll talk a little bit of baseball here as well with some postseason awards starting to trickle out now, and we're starting to get some answers there. So I don't know. I think we can probably just jump in here on NFL Week 10, and it was Man, what a week. What a week. This is exactly what the NFL always wants, is parity. And man, they got it. They got it. So we saw a lot of interesting games, a lot of, I don't even necessarily want to call them upsets, but just really close battles and good games. And, you know, for a team or two, might be some ascending into maybe the upper tier of teams. So I don't know. Do you have anything that kind of jumped out at you? If I volley over to you first, any things that you wanted to throw out that really jumped out at you from Week 10?
Yeah, I mean, Raiders are still smoking cigars after wins, so apparently that's going to be a thing.
That's permanent.
Real quick, Kyler getting his first win back after being out with that torn ACL. Back 25-23 win over the Cardinals. Wasn't great, but, not much more you can expect. It seemed like he had control of the offense. 19 of 32, 249 and a pick. Actually ran the ball 6 times, which is a little surprising. I saw some of the game, and to see him running was a little surprising. Did have a rushing touchdown. James Conner also back, so we can kind of see what maybe that Cardinal offense has a chance to be now. Still kind of question whether it's a good move to bring them back, but they're in the business to win football games, not get draft picks. So here we are. So it's win 1 for Kyler Murray. So good for him.
Yeah, very true. Very true. What else? Anything else?
Man, how about the 49ers coming back after that bye week and just dismantling a 6-2 Jaguars team, 34-3. Brock Purdy, full command of the offense, 19 of 26, 296 and 3 touchdowns.
No turnovers too, which he had been bitten by the turnover bug.
That is huge. Christian McCaffrey finally doesn't score a touchdown, which I think is the first time in 17 games. I think that's what it was. But just total dismantling. Time to start raising some questions about Trevor Lawrence and whether or not he's truly the franchise. Played an awful game, 17 of 29, buck 85 and 2 picks. Couldn't get anything done. So, yeah, I mean, in fairness, they couldn't get the run game going either. Barely used ETN. So, that was another one that kind of stood out to me. Yeah. And then I feel like at the beginning of every Pittsburgh Steelers game, there needs to be a warning. that, this could cause high blood pressure and possible heart attacks because here we are. But pull out the win, now 6-3. Don't ask me how, but here we are. So the offense, I'm going to tell you, Chuck Sikorafor is never getting his job back unless there's an injury. And you saw that whole thing. Apparently, the game 2 games ago, he was overheard. Tomlin overheard him saying we should just take a knee, and that's the reason he got benched. And that's coming from multiple. That's not really just a theory. That's coming from multiple sources, some very highly reputable sources. You bring in Broderick Jones, and now the Steelers have rushed for well over 300 yards in their past 2 games, and just look so much better offensively running the ball. They look competent running the ball. Jaylen Warren goes for 101 yards. Najee goes for 82 yards. Gets another 14 in the pass catching aspect of it, and setting at 6-3. Win next week against the Browns elevates them back into first place in the North. Things are kind of looking up, I guess, for the Steelers. They do lose Quan Alexander to a torn Achilles. This is now 2 linebackers down in 2 weeks. Cole Holcomb going out for the year with that just awful injury that he had. What was a luxury is now become kind of a major need and major concern quickly. Not that any of the linebackers were, just off the charts, but they had great depth there. And now that's becoming a weakness. Hopefully we get Minka back soon. Looking good. The defense is starting to look a lot better. Still gave up a decent amount of pass yards this week that I was kind of a little upset about, but managed to get a couple of picks off of Love. I still like Jordan Love, man. I'm telling you, some of the throws I see this guy make, not every quarterback can make those throws. I know there's a quarterback in Pittsburgh that can't make some of the throws that Jordan Love makes. The arm angles that he can throw at, the power that he can throw with. I think you got to give this guy another year. I don't think they have enough talent receiver wise. They're missing a good, a great tight end, and their rookie Musgrave is starting to come up, a lot. So he's starting to get a lot more involved in the offense. So that's definitely a big help there, Luke Musgrave. But they still need, they still need to get a number 1 receiver, such as like a Devontae Adams type wide receiver. But those are my takeaways. Yeah, just that type. That type,
if you could. All right, those are great takeaways, and I'll add a couple things onto something that you said there. And this is where obviously we're not going to go very long. We actually made that mistake last week going long about the Steelers, but in your opinion, right now, are the Steelers lucky or good?
Good. Yeah, I think they're good. Fourth quarter, good. I think they're, although this week, they finally put up like 17 in the first half, which, let's throw a parade. I think they're starting to gel, and I think they're starting to get better. You can't be this lucky in the NFL. I mean, they've won 6 games and all of them been by 1 score. So they've gotten blown out twice, but the other games, they've been close, and you can't win 6 games and be lucky, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I thought it was interesting that they've been outgained in all 9 games. So, it's one of those things where teams go one of 2 ways, right? You either win during those times and therefore get progressively better and win more, or you had a great run and you won through those times, but as the season wears on, and maybe you are down some players and things like that, that starts to catch up the other way with you. So I'm curious, the number of people too that I saw on Twitter talking about this. And it did look like maybe they got away with one. I didn't watch the game in real time, but just watching the clips, this what appeared to be a backward pass or lateral that the officials, for whatever reason, said that wasn't, and it would have been a Green Bay recovery fumble, I guess fumble really from the Steelers. Green Bay recovery, like, could take it to the house, and that got waved off. What is your take on that play? Like, I've watched it in slow motion from different angles. It certainly looked like maybe not backwards, but minimally a lateral, minimally not a forward pass from what I could see. But what did you think in real time?
Oh, in real time, I thought it was probably minimally a lateral. The only thing is, and I was confused about, is they blew the play dead before there was a clear recovery. So even if they would have, and I think this is why they said the call stood, because they blew the whistle before anyone picked the ball up. Green Bay picked the ball up, but that was after the whistle had blown. So that was my question. I was like, well, they blew the whistle before there was a clear recovery. So if worse, I would think at that point they would have had to say whistle was blown dead before clear recovery happened. That was my opinion. It was close. And those are a couple of throws that I've seen Kenny make that I'm like, are his hands too small? Because, and that wasn't the first one. There was one last week that he had that he was throwing it out of bounds, and it just looked like it slipped out of his hands. It could possibly just slipped out of his hands.
Yeah.
But that throw, if you look at that, it was a really weak throw, and it was really wobbly. Like, I don't know, it's always windy in Pittsburgh, but I don't know if the wind kind of got it, but it was it was definitely a very close play. And I agree, apparently Charles Davis and I are the only two people that ever call Steeler games, because that's the only people I've ever heard on these games. And I think next week they are too. But I didn't disagree with them that you should have just let the play go. But I in my opinion, I think the reason they said let the call stand is maybe not because of the fact that it was that there wasn't clear evidence that it was a backwards pass. It's that the ball was never picked up before the whistle blew.
Yeah.
And I
just don't understand, when are the refs going to learn the lesson on that? I mean, across the board, we see it happen, and it happens sometimes at key moments. And they always talk about how there's this renewed emphasis on, not having plays determined by the time frame of the whistle, and yet somehow it still happens. And let's face it, right? That was a 4-point win by the Steelers. That would have been a massive, massive impact play in that game. And it's just surprising in that scenario why you whistle that dead when it is close. Like, no matter what, you could not have looked at that and thought, this is a no-brainer forward pass. This is an incomplete pass all day. There's no reason to have blown the whistle that soon. So that part, I think,
the side judge definitely wasn't in position to see it. He was probably a little too far up. I don't know exactly where he would need it to have stood. It's not like he knows the play, so he's like, it's going to be it's going to be a pass out into the flat. Let me back up and make sure. So he definitely wasn't in a position. Very close. There was also, a pass interference that they called on, I believe it was either Deontay Johnson or Calvin Austin, that would have ended the game with George Pickens. That was kind of like, I've seen. It was, they're crossing and, the other, the defender runs into them, and so it's just automatically called. So as far as like being outgained, like that's a play where probably goes unnoticed, or probably most of the time might not get called, which doesn't allow them now at the end of the game to throw for another 60 yards. So, being outgained yardage wise, to me isn't always doesn't mean a whole lot. Clearly it doesn't mean a whole lot.
No, I don't think it means a lot in any given game. I do think it's something to look at when it's every single game. That's the only time. I think there's the cumulative effect of it where you go, well, what does it say that you are always outgained? But I agree with you on a game to game basis. just like I saw something the other day where they were saying on the Ravens, Devin Duvernay leads the NFL in total punt return yardage. It's like, yeah, but that means nothing. That's not average. That's just total yardage, right? Like, that just means he is getting punted to a lot because the Ravens have a top-ranked defense. You could just return 5 yards at a time, but if you're getting twice as many as everyone else, that's a meaningless stat. It sounds nice for him, and to the person's either not paying attention or the uneducated viewer, they go, "Well, this guy's pretty good. He might be terrible, but if he's getting twice as many shots on goal as everybody else, you're going to be successful more." And so, yeah, I thought some of those stats are interesting. But here's a stat that I thought was quite interesting. The most sacks in a player's first 100 games. J.J. Watt, 87.5. T.J. Watt, 88. 1/2 of a sack separates T.J. and J.J. for their first 100 games. Now, do you want to take a guess at who the number one is and what that number is?
Yeah, I don't have to guess. I saw the stat.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Reggie White, 105 sacks in his first 100 games. That is insane. The idea that Reggie White had 20 more sacks in the same number of games as TJ and JJ Watt, some of the best there are, that just tells you how insane Reggie White was. I mean, it's good for TJ Watt, good for JJ Watt. Obviously, JJ had an incredible career. TJ's had a great start to his career. But Reggie White was clearly, like, you hear the thing said, we were able to watch Reggie White when we were young. But even at that time, you don't have the full appreciation until now you can go back and go, good Lord, that was a long time ago that Reggie White played his first 100 games. And now we have guys that are the preeminent pass rushers that aren't even within 20% of where that guy is. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's just amazing stat. Now, I don't believe TJ has played a full 100 games yet. I could be wrong on that, but I feel like he's somewhere in the 90-ish level. But I could be wrong, but I feel like he's somewhere in that like 90 some range. Still not going to pass Reggie White at any point in time. And to see like highlights of Reggie like taking a receiver and literally throwing him back into a quarterback to get a sack. I mean, it's just stuff you just can't see. He was just another level.
Yeah, absolutely incredible guy. So I saw that. I wanted to make sure we touched on that. And then the other thing before I get into my three from the weekend, and you know what? I'll wait. I'm not gonna mention that stat yet. I'm gonna hold that stat for a minute.
All right.
Let me jump into my three things from the weekend. Number one, America clearly hates Germany. The fact that yet again we are shipping them this version of NFL football to be a 10-6 Colts Patriots game. And that's what they get. That's how you're trying to convert the international fan base. So here's the thing. I don't like these Europe games. I've been vocal about this from the beginning. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's stupid. However, if you're the NFL and you are going to continue to do these games, whether it's London, Germany, Mexico, wherever, you have got to be smart enough to build it as a flex schedule. You have to be able to look at that and go, okay, yeah, maybe we thought, and I don't know why, but maybe we thought the Patriots were going to be better this year. And maybe the Colts with Anthony Richardson and blah, 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 Jonathan Taylor, yeah, some people would want to see that. But you got to be able to look at that and go, okay, this is not a good game. And then these bad teams go over and then they play a bad game. So it's not just that they're bad teams, but maybe it's going to be good football. Oh no, it's terrible football. And so, yeah, the German fans who went out got a chance to see the Colts beat the Patriots 10-6 in, look, what people were rumoring ahead of time could have been Bill Belichick's last game if he managed to lose, and he did manage to lose. So I don't think it's really going to be his last game, but, I'll say this. Keep an eye out for maybe some potential health issues with Bill Belichick sometime soon. Could be building in an easy excuse for him to step away, keep his dignity, yada, yada, yada. But I do think that there's a possibility there that it could be, hey, I need to step away from, spend time with family. I'm having some health issues. And then magically next year, hey, man, I'm good. Clean bill of health. I'm ready to get back out there for a whole different team.
Isn't that the Urban Meyer way?
That's right. And so anyway, so that's one of my things, is that just general hatred toward Germany from America. I will also say that some teams, and I said this last week, and it's just proving to be true. Some teams aren't who they thought we were. And sometimes you say, oh, well, we thought this team was really good, but it turns out they're not as good. But sometimes it's the team that you don't think is as good, turns out to be the real deal. On this show last week, I actually said that I felt that the Houston Texans-Cincinnati Bengals game, that if the Bengals did not take the Texans very, very seriously, that it could set up perfectly to be a trap game for the Bengals, because Texans were going to come in with a ton of confidence, and it would be very easy for the Bengals to kind of just, again, people think if you're overlooking someone in the NFL, that means you don't care about them at all. You give them no respect. No, it's 2% less focus, which is easy to do because you're looking ahead. You've got to play Thursday night football, a divisional game against the Ravens. So it's very easy to just that 2% little foot off the gas. And it's exactly what happened. Now, of course, I did not go out and put any money on this game or anything, but the bottom line is the Texans found a way to win. It is not a scenario that the Bengals blew that game. The Texans were all over them from the beginning, and they came out to play. And then they had to hang when the Bengals came back and were scoring points, and it looked like, oh, okay, well, Texans are going to Texan. They're going to blow it. Nope, that is not what happened. And, Burrow played well, but was outplayed by CJ Stroud. And so, you look at this and you go, okay, well, the Bengals, I think, are who we thought they were. They're a good team. They're a talented team. 9 times out of 10, they're going to win that game. But maybe the Texans are a little bit ahead of schedule. Maybe they're a lot ahead of schedule. And maybe they're in a position, particularly in that division, to surprise some people and make some noise later this season. So definitely had that one on there as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not for the Texans trying to give that game away. And then you had just a complete gaffe that probably 99 times out of 100, Tyler Boyd's going to catch that pass in the end zone. One thing I thought too, and we've been praising CJ Stroud and rightfully so. But if you saw like that post game press conference where, he's like, we're living up to the hype that essentially, we're living up to the hype that the people believed in us. Not, it's such a mature thing to say, because, easily you could have taken that route of like, nobody believed in us. And
right.
Everything. He's instead saying like, yeah, we're living up to what people believed we could be. And it's just such a mature leader thing to say. Easily could be like, yeah, everyone doubted us, nobody had us pegged to win this game, and instead he's like, we're living up to what all the expectations that people have for us. And kudos to him, man. I love this team, and I'm sure at some point in time I'm gonna hate them. They keep winning. That's just the way it goes in the NFL. But for now, good on them, man. Noah Brown again, showing up, 7 for $172. I mean, he's just all over the place. Tank Dell doing his thing. Dalton Schultz, it's just, and they haven't really even gotten their first round pick from last year. I think he was a first round pick. John Mechie, I believe, was a first round pick last year. It had the leukemia, wasn't able to play. They haven't really even gotten him going yet. Man, this could be a great offense coming up here in the future. Yeah.
No, man, look, they got a lot happening there, and this is the time to do it. Look, we talked about this before, right? Last week, actually, about offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick, right? He came there from the 49ers. Everyone saw what he was able to do with Brock Purdy. Then he turns around and he comes here, and everything's happening with CJ Stroud. High likelihood that dude's going to be gone in the offseason.
And that kind of stinks for them, too.
It does.
Because they, now you got CJ Stroud learning a new offense, you know, and it's just you're learning a new offense because of your success, not because your team is terrible. So, but he's got to be, I mean, he's probably got to be prime choice number one at this point for a head coaching job.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, you know, I mean, let's face it, everyone's been talking about how the Eagles haven't been playing to their best this year, but they lost their offensive and defensive coordinators. So it's like, man, that's a big change. It just is on, you know, on any team. And so, you know, it's going to be interesting. This is the time though. And again, this year obviously is great for the Texans, but even so, you're not paying CJ Stroud. This is the time. If you look at a 4 or 5 year window for this team with what they have, if they can keep building on it, they're going to be a tough team to beat. And then I'm going to flip this around the other way because there are a couple games I could speak about, right? Obviously, I could talk for hours on the Ravens-Browns game. Won't turn a blind eye to it. A disappointing game. Obviously, a really good game. Like if you just want to watch a football game, it's a heck of a football game. Disappointing if you're a Ravens fan that you found a way to lose it. Happy if you're a Browns fan that you found a way to win it. Just kind of is what it is. However, I don't know how surprising it is, right? Like people knew the Browns were a really good team or believed they were a really good defense. Let me say that. Deshaun obviously has been very, very streaky, very hit or miss. The Ravens came down to earth a little bit. They were getting very hyped up. So, you know, that one is kind of, you know, something I don't think is going to be indicative of a bigger picture, but something that is troubling outside of that game, but looking at a different game. When you look at the Giants losing to the Cowboys 49-17, I pulled this out. I want you to hear this. Brian Daboll, since he took over, his combined record against the Cowboys and Eagles is 0-7. He has lost in the last 5 meetings by 26, 6, 31, 40, and 32. So how exactly, like, okay, take last year out of it for a second, right? The Giants obviously had this incredible run last year and, you know, built up a lot of hype. Now, is this closer to who the Giants really are? Or is last year closer to who the Giants really are? And there's one really big reason that you're going to want to figure that out. Because not only do you still have Daniel Jones to determine what you're going to do with, but we just talked about the fact that there might be a Bill Belichick floating around in the deep end of the pool that you could bring in. And if you were the Giants to bring that, now again, you get him over to the NFC, right? So, you know, the Patriots wouldn't have any downside to it. What a splash that would be for the Giants. Again, we know the connection between Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick and, you know, just all of that stuff. Yeah. I just think that could be a really interesting scenario.
Kind of a bring them home final go out here, you know, come back to the place where you got your recognition. Right. Yeah, that's it. But again, does Bill Belichick want to come back to coach the Giants with, you know, Daniel Jones as your quarterback? Daniel Jones isn't going anywhere, folks. I promise you, he's going to be there. He's got $35 million on the books. Nothing you can do with that next year. So he's going to be there, whether he's your starter or not. He's going to be there. So it's just a matter of what it is. And again, I think if I would say Daboll probably gets another year as long as the Giants continue to play hard. I haven't really seen them give up. I just don't think they're good. Right. And, you know, when your quarterback throws for, I don't know, what did DeVito throw for? 14 of 27 for 86 yards. That's 3.2 yards per average. He did have 2 touchdowns, ends up throwing a pick. But I mean, when you've got a quarterback like that, but again, you know, we talk about this all the time. You know, there's several. You know, we're talking about what was the team that lost their quarterback, and they were like, well, we don't know if you know, the backup's going to be the starter or not. You know, again, you know, Tommy DeVito's your backup, and you're letting them throw 27 times, but those are those are Najee Harris, rushing averages,
right?
3.2. So, clearly, he wasn't ready to be your backup quarterback.
Yeah.
So again, I don't understand what these teams are doing with these backups. Getting these guys in here, letting them be a backup, and then forcing them to have to play when clearly they're not ready to play.
But he would have been the third, right? I mean, wasn't it Tyrod Taylor?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess Tyrod's on IR because of that. But again, we know what Tyrod is at this point. He's, a 3/4, he's going to literally play 3/4 for you and he's going to get hurt. That's just, that's what it is. So you're bringing him in knowing full well that if he has to be in the game, he's not going to stay healthy. He's going to look good when he's in there and he's not ever going to lose you the game, but he's never going to be your long-term answer for anything. No. So it's, I think they have to give him one more year to see which is closer, and if it's somewhere in the middle, he's probably gone by mid-season next year. If it's, okay, let's say they're not as bad as they are this year, but they're not as good as they are last year. Now you're a fringe, maybe playoff team.
Right. That's not where you want to be in the NFL.
Right. And how long are you going to, put up with that? So it's, I don't see them not playing hard. So I think that's indicative of him. I don't believe they've given up, but it's tough. I don't know what the answer is there. If Daniel Jones is fully healthy, but when he was healthy, it's not like they were doing good either. So and it's not like Daniel Jones was doing good either. So, but again, name their best wide receiver. I guess I keep going back to that. And again, that's more on GM than I think coaching. When your best receiver is, I don't know, Daniel Bellinger, Darius Slayton. I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson. None of these guys are second receivers on any team, any good team, anyways.
Yeah.
So I don't know necessarily what they do there.
All right, well then let's look ahead to this coming week. Week 11, we are in the thick of it. So now this is when you start to see those divisional games take on a whole lot more meaning. The impact starts to be felt a lot more than earlier in the season. We obviously are not going to go through every single game, but any of these games really jump out at you.
Man, how does that Thursday night game not just jump off the page? You've got two teams that came off really bad losses. Ravens, they've got to be, coming out just insane at this point, giving up 2 14-point leads in that game and losing it. And then the Bengals, giving up that game to the Texans. This is going to be a great game. And this is honestly, this is probably a must-win for the Bengals, I would think, if they want any shot of competing in the North. I mean, we're only going to be, week 11? But at that point, if they lose and go to 5-5, that's going to be a very, very hard hill to climb right there.
Well, yeah, the Bengals are currently 0-2 in the division and 1-4 in the conference. So, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, if they manage to lose this game Thursday night, it's going to be really tough sledding for them, regardless of what they do the rest of the season. I mean, at that point, you basically would have to find a way to win the division, which is super hard to do if you're 1-5 in the conference, and whatever I said in the division, they're currently 0-2. So, I mean, they've really they got a hill to climb. There's no doubt about that.
And it doesn't get easier because then they go to the Steelers, or I'm sorry, they have the Steelers next. It's in Cincinnati, but then they got the Jags, Colts, Vikings, who have been playing just possessed football, and then back to the Steelers, then the Chiefs, then the Browns. So is it too early to say must win? Maybe, but it doesn't get much more must win, I think, than that. So,
agreed. All right. So for me, I mean, I'm going to kind of lump these together a little bit. We talked last week, you mentioned about, just how good the AFC North is and how strong these teams are. And, you look at this and you've got the Bengals and the Ravens on Thursday night, and you have the Steelers and the Browns on Sunday. And so, this week of football for the AFC North is huge. But then when you go last week, you say, okay, well, the Ravens and the Browns played last week, and then you had the Steelers I'm drawing a blank for some reason. Who did the Steelers play?
Packers,
that's it. So, you look at that and you go like, man, these things, the way that they swing, and, and then the Bengals lose to the Texans. And now these teams that are coming off of some crazy losses now are playing divisional games that really, really get interesting. So I think the AFC North games this week, Steelers, Browns, Bengals, Ravens, everyone's coming off of it a little bit different, right? Bengals are coming off of a frustrating loss. Ravens coming off of a frustrating loss. Steelers coming off of a tight win. Browns coming off of a tight win, and then they all those play each other. So the ones coming off the tough losses play each other. The ones coming from the hard fought wins play each other. That's going to be, I think, really, really some interesting stuff to see.
Yes, yeah, and Steelers beat the Browns their first meeting, so if they can pull this one out, that's also a huge step in them making the playoffs. So
yeah. Outside of that, I mean, look, there are some other potentially good games. The Jags need to have a get-right game against the Titans. The Commanders got to get a win. They lost a close game against Seattle. They need to get that win. But outside of that, I mean, let's face it, there's going to be a lot of talk about Eagles-Chiefs Monday Night Football. As many times as people have said, oh, the Eagles really haven't looked like themselves, the Chiefs haven't either. At all. But now coming off a bye week, while Travis Kelce's jetting around the world and, making out with Taylor Swift, he's got to get back to business, and Monday Night Football taking on the Eagles. That's big boy business right there. So it's going to be interesting to see how that matchup goes. Who would you call between those two?
Well, man, I mean, I think it's in Arrowhead, so I'll probably go Chiefs. But I think it seems like it should probably be a very good, very close game.
Yeah.
And you talk about neither team looking great, but you got the Eagles setting at 8-1. You got the Chiefs setting at 7-2. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know how you can look so bad and yet you're still playing, amazing football. So
yeah, it's crazy. And, we were talking right about Seattle managing to pull out a close win against Washington. I mean, Seattle's now 6-3 overall, 5-1 in the conference. So, and again, when you look at their upcoming game this week, they get the Rams, another very winnable game. And so when you look at them, now here's their upcoming schedule though. Rams, Niners, at the Cowboys, at the Niners again, and then Eagles. So we're going to find out really quickly if the Seahawks are fully legit or not, but they've built themselves a cushion that they don't have to win every one of those games to still be in pretty good position. Absolutely.
And then Minnesota goes to Denver, chance to get to 7-4. That would be 6 straight wins for them, and literally would is still setting them right now at 2 games back of Detroit.
They started the season 1-4. 1-4. And here's the thing that's really crazy. They were 1-4 with Justin Jefferson. And 5-0 without him?
Yes.
I mean, that's incredible. Yeah.
Yep.
Just don't know what to say.
No, that's it. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those things like, do they got a legitimate chance here? And their schedule the rest of the way is, is very, very winnable. So, good for them. Trying to see if anything else really stands out this week. I don't see much. No. I mean, I don't even see like 2 teams that would be hoping to lose to the other team. So no, I mean, it's I tell you, the Bears keep winning, they're really going to screw up their their draft picks. But I guess we can just continue to count on for them. I think it's just counting on the Panthers to keep losing. So
agreed. Well, also, before we start to wrap things up here, we saw some of the Major League Baseball postseason awards starting to trickle out. We don't have everything ironed out yet, but I know you had a couple before we started the show here. So what's come out so far? What do we have? And we'll talk about.
Yeah,
for just
Gunnar Henderson just got announced as the AL Rookie of the Year. I don't think anyone was truly surprised by that, but
That's impressive. I mean, he had a heck of a year for the Orioles, and Gunnar Henderson. Look, I mean, this is what they said they were going to do, right? The Orioles said when they brought in Mike Elias and everything, that it was going to be, hey, we're going to build the farm system, we're going to grow our own players, and I mean, they did it, and they did it very quickly. Now, the Orioles already had a pretty deep farm system, but man, these guys now have really been able to play. So now you come out with Rookie of the Year. It's a good place to start for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how they've been able to build this team. So, and then I guess we haven't heard the NL Rookie of the Year. It seems like it's probably a foregone conclusion that's going to be Corbin Carroll of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So I don't think there's going to be. I think this is probably the first year where I don't think there's going to be.
It just came out official. I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. Corbin Carroll's official now, Rookie of the Year.
Okay, yeah. I think this year is probably the easiest time the writers are going to have. Cy Young looks like in the AL is going to be Garrett Cole. In the NL, it looks like it's probably going to be Blake Snell. Ohtani is probably going to win MVP in the AL. Corey Seager is going to be a very legit number 2. So someone said it should be unanimous for 1 and 2. Shohei should be unanimous MVP, and Corey Seager should be unanimous runner-up. And then the NL. This one would be interesting. I'll be curious. Ronald Acuna Jr. was just lights out all year, just consistent all year. Mookie Betts had a phenomenal second half. So I just, it looks like it should be Ronald Acuna. So I don't think there's going to be any big upsets this year. So
yeah, agreed. Saw some good baseball this year. I mean, I think if you're Major League Baseball, you got to be pretty pleased with how the season went. I mean, the pitch clock, everything, speeding up the games, TV ratings are up. People are paying attention. Now, don't get me wrong, postseason.
Postseason
TV ratings weren't nearly where they would have wanted them to be, but overall attendance at the games definitely is. You're absolutely right. And it's because you've made now a product that is easier. Think about when baseball games are played, right? And so if I'm going to go there on a Sunday, if it's going to take up my entire day, I still got to do stuff to get ready for work on Monday and do all these things, maybe get the kids ready for, school in the morning and all these types of things. You got to have a digestible game. You have to have something where people can go. I mean, look, football has the vast majority of their games at 1 p.m. on Sundays because it makes sense. And they play way fewer games. In baseball, you have so many games that it really is just a matter of convenience for people. It's like, this one doesn't work for me. I'll go to this other one. I'll find it. And sometimes that ends up, it's not an event the way the football is. So since you don't have the ability in regular season baseball to build it up to be the event that you can in the NFL, you have to work on making it very, very convenient and digestible for people to take advantage of it. And if you do that, it's showing people will come out to the ballpark. And it's still a great place to be able to go. I mean, to sit in the stadium and watch baseball on a nice day is awesome. I mean, that's so much fun to do. And that's the advantage that baseball has over football, is that you're not going to sit out there when it's 42 degrees outside and you're freezing and it's starting to rain and all that kind of stuff. You don't have that type of stuff. I mean, baseball has the weather, so you need to make sure you can draw people out to the ballpark. And I do think definitely the pitch clock and just the speed of the game, condensing it down has really helped them a lot.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, a lot of old heads didn't like the pitch clock. They didn't like the fact that they couldn't do the shift anymore. And I think it kind of compared it to me and probably you, the new NFL. I'm not a big fan of the new NFL. No. I want to see 17-13 just grinded out games.
Defensive battles, hard hits.
Yeah. I don't want to see quarterbacks. Your 15th best quarterback throwing for 350 yards, a game and throwing for 4 touchdowns. To me, it's just not fun. I get it. It brings more eyes to the game because you're producing more offense, and that's what people, most common people want to see. Let me see Justin Jefferson go streak down the field, because I know that name, And so I get, with baseball, like the old heads really not liking this stuff, but I think overall it's good for the game.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agree. And I think, at the end of the day, you might not like changes all the time, whether it's baseball, football, or anything else. But if you see the impact is a net positive for the game, then that's what makes the most sense. And,
Absolutely.
that's, I think football, I don't know for sure that all those changes have been a net positive, but in baseball, it's a net positive for sure.
For sure.
So,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't mind a lot of the offense. I just, the roughing the passers, man, drove me insane. Like it's just too much. There's only so much protection, and now they want to ban, like the slide tackles, where the guy tackles them from behind, and I get it, like player safety and everything, but you got to give the defense something. I mean, how else are they going to get these guys down? Like I legit don't want to see it go to where we're flagging, we're putting flags on the quarterback.
Right. I mean, is it just flag football? I mean, it's like you're getting to that point where you're saying, don't tackle him like this. Don't tackle him. I saw, and I think it was Robert Griffin that actually put this out, a clip. This was from a couple of weeks ago. Ravens fullback Patrick Ricard got fined over $21,000 for blocking in the red zone. Came off and just grabbed the guy, just drove him backwards, and then the guy ended up getting tripped up and fell down. $21,000 fine. I don't even think it was a penalty during the game. $21,000 fine. For what reason? You're blocking on a run play. What exactly are you supposed to do? Like, everything was clean, everything was legal, but it's a fine. That's stealing money from players. Like, if you're doing that stuff, that's completely unfair to these players, because there's no other way. Unless the NFL can come to him and say, here's what you should have done. Here's how we want you to do that so that you don't get fined. If you can't do that, then you can't fine him the money.
Exactly. Jaylen Warren actually got fined. I want to say it was something like $27,000. It was essentially a game check.
Yeah.
And they showed the play, and I'm watching it, and I'm looking at it. I have no clue what this guy did that was wrong, but didn't get flagged in the game. It was just, we went back and let's look through and find all these. I'm not sure how the players don't strike. I guess like the people that are in the upper echelon, as far as making money, don't care. But I mean, you got to protect some of these. Like, that's literally a game check for Jaylen Warren for doing his job. It just wasn't exactly the way I guess the NFL wanted it to be done. And I don't know that anyone can tell us any different what he was supposed to have done different, because it looked so innocuous. What did he do? And I don't know,
Yeah. And that's the thing. Well, I mean, here, I'll give you an example, right? Don't take my word for it, because while we were talking here, I'm going to be quick about this, but I think it's worth a look. So let me bring this here. Okay. So if you're watching, you're going to see Patrick Ricard here go in motion. For anyone who's listening on the podcast, I brought up a clip of this block. This is Patrick Ricard in motion. Lines up, comes through the hole, picks up his block. $21,000 fine.
Are they saying he led with his helmet? Because I'm not even sure how else he was supposed to do.
You're like, what do you do to block someone if you can't do that? Right? He's just pushing the guy, blocking him back, and then that's it. That's like every normal play you'd ever see.
I just don't understand how they're not allowed, like how they can't come out and say, this is exactly what he did. Maybe there's a place that happens. I don't know. The only thing we ever see is he got fined for this play, and there's no explanation attached to it.
Yeah, and he said that trying to find it here, that he was going to appeal it, and but a lot of people, are upset about it, and of course, and Ricard said, it's $21,694 he got fined for that play. He said, I think it's pretty ridiculous, to be honest, especially the amount they're fining me. And he said, I'm just trying to make my block. We're on the 5-yard line. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure my guy doesn't make the play, and I drive him backwards. Apparently, he was told that he had initiated contact using the crown of his helmet on the block. Now, of course, he wasn't flagged or anything. And he said, I've been doing this for 7 years at the highest level at my position, and I've never been fined for this before. So for that to get fined, it's hard to believe. J.J. Watt actually tweeted about that play and said, "I will say it again, this is stealing money from guys. These absurd fines for routine football plays have got to stop. Fines for intentionally malicious plays, absolutely. Taking over $21,000 from a guy for this, what are we doing? This is out of control." Ben Watson came out, RG3, other people, but it's like, yeah,
what
it's
are
just
they doing?
Insane.
What are the players doing about it?
Right. Yeah. Ugh, I don't know, man. It's craziness.
It seems like this is probably something they signed in the CBA and said that this is a lot. I don't know.
Right. You can arbitrarily find me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's craziness. All right. Anyway, we are up against it here. So the last thing I wanted to share was just something neat I saw. We talked a little while ago about the NFL game this past weekend in Germany. And I saw this clip. I thought it was very cool. I'm going to bring this up. And again, if you're listening on the podcast, you'll be able to see this on YouTube. But they played at the Frankfurt Stadium in Germany. And it is an enclosed stadium. But they have this ability to bring this top in. It's like a heavy cloth. And watch how this happens. It retracts and it actually goes into the scoreboard, the Jumbotron that hangs in the center of the stadium. And now you have an open air stadium. Shrinks down to that size. And then boom. Is that crazy or what?
It's nuts. Yes, it is nuts. I guess the only thing I see with it is the scoreboard probably moves up, 15? I don't even know what that would be. 10 feet in the air.
Right.
Like, I wonder if that obscures anything or if that makes anything more difficult to see. But that is flipping amazing.
Yeah. The technology is just nuts, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, then they can just like bring it all in. And I saw in the comments, somebody said, yeah, I can't even get my tent back in the bag after I go camping.
That's so true.
So anyway, I thought the technology was really cool there. I thought it was worth a look because you don't get a chance to see that a lot of times, particularly, in some of these European stadiums where the technology is so different and, they're in soccer stadiums and things like that. And, they've obviously been doing this for a long time. So they look at it a little bit differently. So thought that was very cool. So any last minute thing before we wrap this sucker up?
No, I think we covered about everything we wanted to cover. So
there you go. All right, man. Great show as always. Thank you to our global audience. Check us out on all of our social media channels that You Get the Horn Show. And we will talk to you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.